What's up, Cowboys Nation? Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a tough 24 hours for a lot of you, and trust me, it hasn't been easy for me either. We just witnessed one of the most humiliating losses in recent memory. The Dallas Cowboys went into Week 17 with high hopes of getting closer to securing their playoff spot, and instead, they got absolutely steamrolled by the Philadelphia Eagles, full of the COVID-19 pandemic. A 41-7 blowout. That's the kind of loss that not only stings, but it leaves you questioning what went wrong and whether this team has what it takes to make a deep run in the playoffs. There's a lot to unpack, folks, so let's get into it. But here's the kicker. It's not all bad news for the Cowboys. I'm going to break down both the good and the bad that came out of this game, so stick around, because there's plenty to talk about. Coming into this game, there was a lot of excitement surrounding the Cowboys. After a season filled with highs and lows, they were positioned well enough to potentially lock in a playoff spot with a win over their bitter NFC East rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now the Eagles are no slouches. They're arguably the best team in the NFL this season, with MVP-caliber play from quarterback Jalen Hurts, a high-flying offense, and a defense that's stacked from top to bottom. But Cowboys fans were hoping that this would be the game where Dallas would show the world that they could compete with the best, and that they could overcome their past inconsistencies. Unfortunately, that was not the case. From the moment the game kicked off, it was clear that the Cowboys were outmatched in every phase of the game. The Eagles wasted no time taking control, and the Cowboys' defense, which had been their strongest unit all season, looked like a shell of itself. Let's start with the defense, because honestly, that's where things started to spiral out of control. Jalen Hurts was absolutely on fire. I'm talking over 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and a complete dismantling of the Cowboys' secondary. And that secondary, mind you, had been considered one of the better units in the league this season. But on this day, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith just had their way with Dallas's cornerbacks and safeties. Brown finished with 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, making it look almost too easy at times. It felt like every pass Hurts threw was right on the money, and the Cowboys had no answer for his playmaking ability. Hurts was surgical with his decision-making, and when he wasn't throwing lasers to his wideouts, he was making plays with his legs. Every time the Cowboys seemed to get a little bit of momentum, Hurts would escape the pocket and turn a broken play into a big gain. But the defense's problems didn't end with just the secondary. The defensive line, which had been one of the most dominant forces in the NFL this year, couldn't generate pressure on Hurts consistently. Micah Parsons, normally a game wrecker, was neutralized for the most part. Sure, he had a few pressures and tried to make things happen, but the Eagles' offensive line gave Hurts plenty of time to make his reads. The pass rush couldn't get home, and when that happens, it's like the floodgates open. Hurts had all day to find his targets, and when he wasn't throwing touchdowns, he was moving the chains with ease. To make matters worse, the Cowboys' defense couldn't stop the Eagles from converting on third downs, and we all know that's one of the most demoralizing things for a defense. And then they it killed your momentum. It was brutal to watch, and by the time the third quarter came around, it was clear that this game was slipping away from Dallas fast. Now, if you thought the defense was bad, the offense wasn't any better. Dak Prescott, who's been up and down this season, had what I can only describe as a nightmare performance. He finished with 2 interceptions, one of which was returned for a touchdown. A pick-6 that completely deflated the team and really sealed the Cowboys' fate in this one. The offense was out of sync from the start, and no matter what adjustments they tried to make, nothing worked. Prescott looked flustered, and the offensive line, which had been much improved in recent weeks, failed to protect him. Dak was under constant pressure, and it seemed like he was throwing off his back foot on every other throw. On top of that, the running game was non-existent. Tony Pollard and Rico Dowdle combined for a mere 48 yards on the ground. When your offense can't get any balance and your quarterback is forced to drop back every single play, it becomes easy for the defense to tee off on you. The Eagles knew that Dak was going to have to pass, and they had their defensive line pinning their ears back, coming after him relentlessly. The Cowboys' mistakes didn't stop there. Penalties were another major issue. Dallas was flagged 9 times for 85 yards. And these penalties were drive killers. False starts, holding calls, and defensive pass interference calls all piled up, and at the worst times. It's almost like the Cowboys were trying to dig themselves out of a hole the entire game. But every time they got close, they shot themselves in the foot. In big games like this, you just can't afford to make these kinds of mistakes. Against a team like the Eagles, you need to be on your A game, and unfortunately, Dallas just wasn't. After the game, Mike McCarthy's frustration was clear. He gave a post-game presser where he admitted that the team just wasn't prepared for the intensity that the Eagles brought to the table. He said, "We came out flat. We didn't match their intensity and it cost us." McCarthy is a seasoned coach, so I'm sure he's been in plenty of tough situations before. But you could tell that he was genuinely disappointed with the team's lack of fight. He also talked about how the team needed to look in the mirror and make changes, and fast. That's the thing about the NFL. It's a week-to-week league, and every team has a chance to turn things around. But the margin for error is razor thin, and the Cowboys are now facing the very real possibility of entering the playoffs with some serious questions to answer. But here's the thing, Cowboys fans, there's still hope. Yes, this loss was ugly, but the season isn't over yet. The Cowboys still control their own destiny when it comes to the playoffs. If they win their final regular season game, they're likely in at least, and that's all that really matters at this point. They'll need to shake off this loss, forget about it, and focus on the next game. If they want to make any noise in the postseason, they need to get back to the fundamentals. Better execution, fewer mistakes, and a more aggressive mentality. Now, let's talk about the good. There were a few bright spots, even in the midst of this blowout. CeeDee Lamb continues to prove that he's one of the top wide receivers in the league. He finished with 8 catches for 112 yards, showing his ability to make big plays, even when the team is struggling. Lamb has been a reliable target for Dak all season long, and he's one of the few players on this offense who consistently shows up when it matters. You can always count on CeeDee to fight for every yard, and in a game like this, his effort stood out. Another positive takeaway is the play of Micah Parsons. I know. He didn't have the explosive game that we've come to expect from him, but he was still making plays. He had a few pressures on Hurts, and even though his impact wasn't as visible as usual, Parsons was fighting through double teams and trying to make something happen. If the Cowboys are going to make a playoff run, they'll need more of that from Parsons. Looking forward, the Cowboys have no choice but to regroup. This loss was a tough one, but it's not the end of the season. The team has one more regular season game, and it's a do-or-die scenario. The good news is that they have the talent to beat any team in the NFC, including the Eagles. But they need to get back to playing like the team we know they can be. Can they do it? We'll find out soon enough. So, Cowboys Nation, what do you think? Was this loss a wake-up call, or is it a sign of bigger problems ahead? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to smash that like button, and if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe for all the latest Cowboys news, analysis, and updates. This season isn't over yet. There's still plenty of football left to play. I'll catch you all in the next one.